The morning air in Prague is heavy, suffocating. Thousands press together in the city square, their breath forming a low, restless hum. Eyes lock on the towering gallows, its wooden frame looming like a skeleton against the pale sky. The creak of rope sways in the wind, sharp, deliberate, like the ticking of a clock counting down to vengeance. Soldiers shift their rifles, boots scrape against cobblestones, and the crowd leans forward, waiting. At the center stands a man, small in stature but weighted with a history soaked in blood. His name spreads like venom through the whispers, Karl Hermann Frank. To some, he is the Butcher of Bohemia, the iron fist who ordered villages erased, families torn apart, children stolen. To others, he is nothing but a trembling figure, his black coat buttoned too tightly, his face pale against the scaffold. The executioner adjusts the rope. The crowd's murmurs break into sudden shouts, jeers of survivors, curses spat with decades of pain behind them. Frank stares straight ahead, his jaw clenched, pretending calm, but his fingers twitch against the rail. A Czech officer steps forward, voice booming through the square, "For the crimes against our people, for Lidice, for Leaky, justice will be served." The silence that follows feels unbearable, stretched taut like the rope itself. Even hardened soldiers, men who have marched across burning Europe, stand frozen in this moment. They know the man before them is not just a prisoner. He is the face of terror, the architect of massacres. The trapdoor waits. The crowd waits. History waits. But what comes next will not simply be an execution. It will be the reckoning of a nation, a final act so charged with vengeance and memory that even time itself seems to hold its breath. The crowd in Prague stares at the condemned man, but to understand why he stands here, we must move backward, through the smoke, through the years, through the rise of tyranny. The camera sweeps across the Sudetenland, 1930s. Streets crowded with banners, angry speeches echoing off stone walls. A young Karl Hermann Frank emerges, his voice sharp, his gestures feverish. He thrives on division, on the bitterness of Sudan Germans who feel abandoned after the fall of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Their frustration is his weapon. His rise is not subtle. He marches at the front, eyes burning, shouting promises of revenge and power. Then, 1938. The world watches as Hitler demands the Sudetenland. Frank, already deep in Nazi ranks, seizes his chance. Villages watch as German troops cross the border, welcomed by some, feared by many. In the background, Frank rides in black cars draped with swastikas, smirking as Czechoslovakia begins to break. By 1939, the Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia is born, an occupied land under the boot of the Reich. And at the heart of it, sitting behind polished desks and beneath portraits of Hitler, is Karl Hermann Frank. His title, State Secretary. His power, absolute. But he is no paper pusher. Files slam closed with his signature. Men are dragged from their homes with a wave of his hand. Gestapo orders flow directly from his desk to the firing squad. His role is a fusion of bureaucracy and terror, pen in one hand, pistol in the other. The streets of Prague darken under his rule. Resistance grows, but Frank is watching. Every whisper, every leaflet, every act of defiance is met with raids, arrests, executions. The people begin to fear not just the knock at midnight, but the man whose name rides on every decree of death, Karl Hermann Frank. And soon, that fear will erupt into one of the most infamous massacres of the war. It is dawn, June 10, 1942. The village of Lidice wakes to the sound of boots on gravel. Dogs bark, doors slam open, children cry as German soldiers pour into the quiet streets. The villagers do not yet know why the SS have come, but the orders are already written, signed off by Karl Hermann Frank himself. Men are dragged from their beds, shoved against barn walls. Their wives scream, clutching children who are torn from their arms. The soldiers form lines, rifles snapping to their shoulders. The first crack of gunfire shatters the morning calm. One man falls. Then another. Then another. The bodies tumble into trenches dug overnight by prisoners. Frank is not here in person, but his presence is everywhere. His command is precise: Lidice must be wiped from existence. Not punished. Not occupied. Erased. The women and children are loaded onto trucks. Their cries fade as the engines grind toward the horizon. Many of the women will be sent to Ravensbrück, condemned to slave labor. The children, those not chosen for Germanization, will vanish into the abyss of extermination camps. Meanwhile, the men of Lidice are executed in groups of 10. Rifle bursts echo again and again until no one is left standing. Smoke begins to rise as houses are set ablaze. The flames consume roofs, walls, barns. Engineers move in with explosives, demolishing what fire cannot destroy. Even the village church is reduced to rubble. When it is over, Lidice is nothing but a scar of ash and silence. Maps are altered, records erased. The Nazis boast, Lidice does not exist. But the world hears the name. News of the massacre spreads across Europe and beyond. For the people of Czechoslovakia, the message is clear: resist, and your home will share Lidice's fate. And Karl Hermann Frank, the architect of this horror, cements his legacy as the ruthless executioner of a nation's hope. After Lidice, silence grips the protectorate. But it is not peace, it is fear. The name of Karl Hermann Frank travels in whispers, a shadow at every doorway. Villagers lower their voices when speaking of him, as if even sound itself could betray them. Trains thunder out of Prague, packed with prisoners. The steel wheels screech against the tracks, carrying men and women to concentration camps with no return. Entire families vanish overnight. Neighbors wake to see doors left open, meals abandoned on tables, lives erased in the span of a single midnight knock. Frank watches it all unfold from his office in Prague Castle. Maps stretch across his desk, red pins marking villages, black folders stacked with names. Each list is a death sentence. His orders merge paperwork with violence, deportations, shootings, executions carried out by squads who move with brutal precision. The streets begin to choke with fear. Posters plastered on walls announce public hangings. Gallows are built in town squares, their shadows long and menacing. Citizens are forced to watch as resistance fighters dangle lifeless, their bodies left swaying as a warning. But repression does not crush the spirit of resistance, it fuels it. Underground newspapers circulate in secret. Messages are passed in coded whispers, graffiti scrawled across walls in defiance of Frank's terror. The Gestapo hunts relentlessly, dragging suspects into interrogation chambers where screams echo through the stone. Even the German soldiers sense the tension. Patrols move nervously through alleys, rifles clutched tight, unsure if the next corner hides a partisan ambush. Frank's grip on the protectorate is iron, but beneath it, something stirs: rage, defiance, and the will to fight. The more brutal his measures, the more determined the resistance becomes. And as the Reich begins to falter at the front lines, Frank's campaign of terror grows even more ruthless, a drowning man clinging tighter to power. But then, 1945 arrives, and with it, the collapse of the Nazi war machine. And Karl Hermann Frank will discover that the fear he once commanded is about to turn back on him. Spring, 1945. The Reich is collapsing. Columns of retreating German troops clog the roads, their faces hollow, uniforms tattered, discipline evaporating. Smoke rises from villages and factories as the front draws closer, the thunder of Soviet artillery rolling in the distance. Inside Prague, Karl Hermann Frank knows the end is near. Once untouchable, he now moves nervously through the halls of Prague Castle, suitcases packed, cars waiting in the courtyard. He is desperate, not for redemption, but for escape. His hope is clear: surrender to the Americans, not the Czechs. Anything to avoid the vengeance of the people he has terrorized. His convoy snakes out of the city under cover of night. Black cars roar along forest roads, engines straining, headlights cutting through mist. But shadows move in the trees. Resistance fighters, Czech partisans, wait with rifles cocked. Suddenly, without warning, gunfire erupts. Bullets slam into steel, windows shatter, tires screech. The convoy lurches to a halt. Soldiers scramble, shouting, returning fire blindly into the woods. But it is chaos. Frank is dragged from his car, thrown into the dirt, his once polished boots caked with mud. Hands bind his wrists tight. The partisans jeer, their faces lit by the glow of burning wreckage. Villagers emerge from doorways, spitting at the man who signed their family's death warrants. Someone throws a stone. Another, a fist. Frank stumbles, eyes darting wildly, the mask of arrogance gone. Dragged back through the streets of Prague, he passes walls still scarred with bullet holes and gallows still standing. Crowds follow, their shouts swelling into a roar. For the first time, Karl Hermann Frank feels what his victims felt: helpless, surrounded, hated. He thinks, still, that the Americans will save him. That diplomacy, papers, and excuses might erase the blood on his hands. But the people of Czechoslovakia have other plans. His reckoning is no longer far away. And soon, inside Pankrak prison, the walls will close in on the Butcher of Bohemia. Pankrak prison, Prague. The walls are damp, the air heavy with the weight of justice long delayed. Behind iron bars sits Karl Hermann Frank, once the feared master of life and death in Bohemia, now just another prisoner awaiting judgment. The trial begins. The courtroom trembles with voices. Survivors take the stand, mothers describing children torn from their arms, men recalling neighbors executed in rows against barn walls. Photographs of Lidice are displayed, rubble, ashes, faces that no longer exist. Every word is a blade cutting deeper into Frank's last defense. He clings to the phrase that has become the shield of so many Nazis: "I was only following orders." His voice is cold, mechanical, drained of remorse. But the judges are unmoved. The people are unmoved. The verdict is clear: guilty of war crimes and crimes against humanity. The sentence: death. May 22, 1946. The square outside Prague swells with thousands. Survivors, soldiers, widows, children, all press forward to see the man who once ruled them with fear now face the gallows. Soldiers escort Frank up the wooden steps. His legs shake, though he tries to mask it. The executioner adjusts the rope, the fibers scratching against Frank's neck. The crowd holds its breath. Even the birds seem to fall silent. A voice reads his sentence aloud, echoing across the square. Frank swallows hard, his lips forming final words: "I only did my duty." Not an apology. Not a plea for forgiveness. Only cold obedience to a dead lie. One step. The trapdoor creaks beneath him. 2 seconds, the rope pulls taut. A snap. The crowd erupts, not in chaos, but in release. For the first time in years, the people of Prague exhale together. The Butcher of Bohemia is gone. The square in Prague is silent now. The rope sways gently in the breeze, its fibers still trembling from the weight it carried moments ago. The crowd disperses slowly, their footsteps echoing on cobblestones, their faces a mixture of relief, sorrow, and grim satisfaction. Justice, long awaited, has been delivered. Inside the prison, the scaffold stands empty. The smell of sawdust and rope lingers. Guards extinguish lanterns, the square returns to shadow. But outside, in villages scarred by fire and executions, the news spreads like dawn breaking after a long night. The man who erased Lidice has himself been erased from mercy. Yet the ashes of Lidice remain. Where once there were homes, now there are only fields marked by stone memorials. Names etched in granite recall the men lined up and shot, the women deported, the children vanished. Flowers lie at the base of the memorial, bright against the grey silence. Survivors bow their heads, whispering the same vow, never forgotten. Frank's execution is more than the fall of a single man, it is a national catharsis. A people scarred by occupation see, at last, one of their tormentors brought low before their eyes. It does not restore the dead, nor heal every wound, but it signals something powerful, that even the architects of terror cannot outrun justice forever. And yet, the lessons linger beyond 1946. Frank was not a monster born, but a man shaped by ideology, hatred, and power unchecked. His story is a warning written in blood, that ordinary people, given authority without conscience, can become engines of atrocity. Today, the name of Lidice still echoes, not as a forgotten village, but as a symbol of resilience against annihilation. The rope that ended Karl Hermann Frank's life became, for Czechoslovakia, the final punctuation on years of fear. This was one execution. But in the shadows of the Second World War, countless more stories remain, secrets, fates, and last stands waiting to be uncovered. Step with us into the next story.